Today we have Richard Brubaker, so now I'm just going to give a brief introduction about him. Currently, as a managing director of collective responsibility and a visiting professor of sustainability in China Europe International Business School, which is called CIP, and which he focused on building platforms that promote long-term organizational capacity to address the economic, environmental, and social entrepreneurship. So, Richard, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. So today we gotta talk about social entrepreneurship, but before getting through this topic, we would like to have a sort of brief introduction from yourself. Yeah.
Sure. So let's see. Been in Asia since '95 was my first trip. Full time last 15 years in China. Most of it in Shanghai now. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned I'm a social entrepreneur, so I have a few hats. I teach at the China Year Business School, teach management and responsible leadership, sustainability and responsible leadership. I have a consulting firm called Collective Responsibility that I'm founded.
Perfect.
We now will have 16 people in the offices.
Nice.
A lot of people to feed, and that's a real strategic, looking at sustainability, creating definitions and then actions at value chains. Happy to talk about that. And then the last thing is I have a volunteer organization here called Hands on Shanghai. We manage 25,000 volunteers in the city, 140 to 180 projects a month. And yeah, it's been going for 13 years now. And we've been locally licensed for 6 of those. So yeah, have a few hats, and those are just things I talk about. So
that's beautiful. I mean, that what you have done is great and is so admirable. I hope we can learn from you.
All I've had is crazy ideas, man. My teams do all the work, but I've had some great ideas and some great people to work with. So
nice, yeah. That's the thing that makes difference. So I hope that all of us, we can be a social entrepreneurs. Then we can solve a lot of problems.
Sure.
In terms of having impact in societies.
Sure.
But let's go through this issue. That what is the best definition of social entrepreneurship?
That's a really big question, and it's one that's very divisive. So,
many definitions.
Look, let's just, I mean, the standard definition is something that, along the lines of, you're a profit-making entity that solves a social challenge. I think it's a very Western definition. I think it's one that's very ideological at times, and I think it's also very divisive. After spending most of my adult career living in developing nations, surrounded by, I mean, it could be poverty, environmental challenges, or economic development, like economic challenges, I'll call it for lack of a better term. I've just basically come down to the idea that you are a socially or mission-minded individual or a mission-minded organization. So you look out at the world and go, the air is dirty, the water is impure, the food isn't safe, healthcare is expensive, and I don't know what I'm going to teach my kids. And you come up with a solution. I don't care, personally, my personal definition has zero relevance to profit or non-profit legal status, or whether or not you even drive a Ferrari, because you've scaled up your idea to the point where you've solved so many human problems that you made a little bit of money for yourself. I don't mind that personally, but I know that I am basically grading against the grain on that one. The traditional definition would be something more along the lines of you find a balance. First off, you have a financially sustainable model. And most definitions would then point you towards the for-profit model. But that you have the non-profit niceness to yourself, to your organization. And I think that that's fine. I think it's all about the context, where you're at. If you're in the States or if you're in China, the context is totally different. And for me, that's fine. I think we need both definitions in the world to engage different individuals into this action of solving problems that are really, at the human level, tangible.
Cool, perfect. So, as you have been here like 15 years, how's it? I mean, you're American, yeah? And you've been living here for
I'm
a long
American,
time.
yes.
And What is the difference between being a social entrepreneur there and here, and how social entrepreneurs are here? What is the number of people as well, or number of company as a social enterprise?
So to answer your first question, I have no idea. For two reasons. I don't know the difference between America and China, honestly, at this level. One, I never started, ran, I never engaged with social innovation, social entrepreneurship in the States. So I don't know at the day-to-day basis what the difference is. I know that philosophically, when I talk to my peers in the US, we tend to speak differently. And I don't mean that to be a difference that is a positive or a negative. Our context is so different. China has very different challenges than the US. Yeah. Some things overlap, like let's say carbon in the US is air pollution here. Food safety probably is an issue in both countries. But very different context. So I think it's unfair for me to say. But what I'll say is in China, it depends upon where you are in your maturity as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as a business. Right now, I feel that China is the most exciting place to be if you are trying to identify human needs that are not being met and then build a business model or value proposition to meeting those needs. I think it's a fantastic place. One, because the challenges here are so real. Environmental pollution, social challenges, economic transformation, or like this transition from product to service, away from manufacturing into something else. Like that's all happening here at the size, scale, and speed of China. And that's what's so fun, is because like literally, like when things are going wrong, the wheels are just coming off the car at full speed, and people are like, holy shit. We're in the States, we're like, we should save polar bears. It's not practical, it's not tangible, and that's why it takes so much longer. But of course, we need people to care about the polar bears. The emotional 25-year, 100-year legacy vision, we need to solve that problem and make sure that our grandkids have blah, 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 blah. I find more of that in the States and in the West. I find less that here, there's like, we need to fix this right now because people are starving, people are dying of cancer, whatever it may be. And so I feel that it's, I mean, for me in China, Asia is just an exciting place to be. Because the other thing is, for me, why am I spending more time in Asia is just because the population, the urbanization boom for the next 35 years is all in Asia. It will leave China, it will go to Bangladesh, it will go to Pakistan, it will go, like it'll all be Asia, subcontinent Asia, all the way through Africa and then South America. So I think it's a very exciting place to be. And that's really all I want to say about that end of it. And I think I kind of answered both questions, but I'm more happy to follow up.
How many social enterprise that you have been in contact here? Are we lacking of this sort of enterprises here?
I don't think so. No. So actually, this gets back to the first question of definitions. If I were Skoll, or if I were one of the other big social, like Ashoka organizations, they have a hard time finding individuals or enterprises that fit their mold, that fit their definition. But I mean, especially for my nonprofit work, there are so many individuals here that started schools, that started rehabilitation centers, that started organic farms, because they saw that their kids couldn't get something. Their family member went through the hospital and just, it wasn't a good experience, you know, or they're worried about something. Like, and I find a lot of that. But they're not holding their hand up going, I'm a social entrepreneur, because they're not looking for awards, because there's no sexiness, honestly. So if there's one difference, I don't think there's much sexiness to being a social entrepreneur in China. There is in the West, but there's a business model here that there isn't necessarily sometimes in the West. So what I find is that we did a social entrepreneur landscape last year for one of the big organizations. We identified 50 organizations that we spoke to at length about how they grew from like little enterprises to multiple city, 100-person plus, million US dollar revenues organizations, 50 of them. And there was another 150 that were smaller that we could have easily identified and spoken with and learned from. So I believe it's here, but we're not seeing it because we're using our own filter to say, oh, those people don't count. But in the context of China, they do. I think there's tens of thousands of people who are building businesses to solve the challenges that China faces. Great.
Do you think that sometimes people, they start a sort of business as in the startups, and some of them, they are aware what they are doing, and some of them, they're not aware. Some of them, even they don't know what social entrepreneurship is, or some of them, they don't know that these products that might bring a sort of value and so on.
Yeah.
So related to this, this issue that I mentioned, that how would it be the influence of the culture of that country, for example, in the state or let's say in the Western world and here in China and Asian countries, how much the culture of that country or the educational system matters and can push people to thinking about challenges in societies than thinking about profit?
So this will tie a few of the other questions together.
Yeah.
One is that it shouldn't matter at all, because you should, as an individual, see a problem that you want to fix. Culturally, okay, I guess we could talk about like how secure are you to then feel confident about your ability to solve that problem, and are there the legal structures for you to do that? Blah 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 blah. Yes. But at the macro level, I think actually in China there's kind of two groups that I run into. The first group is a group that's like, I'm a social entrepreneur and this is the polar bear that I'm trying to save. They have no business model. They're just trying to say they're a social entrepreneur because that's how they want to gain attention.
Yeah.
And then there's another group that I really subscribe to, that I spend every day trying to figure out how to support them. They don't tell anyone who they are. They're just fixing problems. When I started Hands-On, it was it was stupidity and naivety in a way that I even started the organization. I had volunteered in San Francisco when I lived there for a group called Hands-On San Francisco. When I moved to Shanghai, I was tired of the only thing in my life being work and play. And by play, I really mean drink, right? Because that's all there was 15 years ago. Yeah. That was what social activities were. I wanted to get back to community. I went online and I tried to find opportunities. There were none. And I spoke Chinese at the time, so I could even like go into Baidu and type into Chinese, volunteer. Like, there were no opportunities because they wanted to do a long-term thing. Yeah. So I said, I'm just gonna like get some friends together and we're just gonna go and volunteer at the orphanage or volunteer somewhere. And I was like, I'll do it. And I'll create a website. So I actually called my friends back in San Francisco. I'm like, how do I create this? And they sent me an application to become an affiliate. I'm like, that doesn't help me actually build the affiliate. Wrote my own website using Adobe Dreamweaver. It was the ugliest thing. Like, my son at 5 years old comes home with better artwork than what my first website was. And then like 2 years later, I got a small amount of money, $15,000 from one company to manage their corporate volunteer. And I basically said, I have two things I can do with this money. One is I can keep it for myself. I can really justify all the work I put into it and take a little bit for myself and then and like donate the rest away. Or I can hire someone that can then take who can take the pressure off me to run this organization. I hired someone. And honestly, like that moment is when we went from like cute club of 50 people volunteering once a month to cuter organization volunteering 10 times a month with 250 people. And that quickly, within 6 to 12 months, turned into 4 staff. Now we're 9 staff. We were at one point 15. But really, we did not start off trying to call ourselves anything. We had no aspirations to be big, solve problems, whatever. I was just trying to solve a very small problem for myself that I saw, and try and take a small action. If I had known that it would be this big now, I don't know if I'd do it. Because I would get so bothered about the process. But every step I enjoyed the process. Every step I found new people to come with me. Then they inspired me as much as I was inspiring them. Then it became a job. So that I kind of stepped back, I empowered it. And I never would have done that if I'd known like, okay, your goal in 10 years is X.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, let's say that entrepreneurship, because we are just focusing on entrepreneurs, yeah?
Yeah.
Then we have entrepreneurship concept and beside of that social entrepreneurship concept and the difference between them. Because when you talk about entrepreneurship, you're talking about sort of idea that you make it as a product in the market and you sell it and you bring a sort of value and you're gonna have profit out of it,
Yeah.
And you have to just satisfy your investors that you made a profit. Doesn't matter if it have a good impact on society or not, whatever. Yes.
Right.
So this is entrepreneurship, that it comes from the idea. So, and imagine that if we have people that thinking that they have to go for solving problems, not just making profit. If they have to go in that way, so what would it be that if they could do some voluntary works? For example, now we have a sort of platform. It's called Uzi Uzi, yeah?
Yep.
Uzi Uzi actually is made based on voluntary work. Well, frankly speaking, the voluntary works here only are being done for, you know, some students in universities. They just want to go and
way
help.
back here. Are you a volunteer, Way?
Yeah, they just want to go and help some companies. They just want to learn and so on.
Sure.
You know, the intention behind of that is important. Either if I want to go and help people, I mean, it shouldn't be in that way that something disaster has to happen. Then we get volunteer and to go for it. Why not just we look for a sort of problem, see what kind of problems we have in society or people they need help and so on. I'm going to go through as a social entrepreneur. It's not going to start from solving a really big problem, as you mentioned that you started little by little. And it has to be that we have to learn to be volunteer of doing something, helping others. It can be, there can be an animal, there can be a dog, or there can be a cat that they're sick and you can't help that they can, they come out from that.
I know where you're going with this, and I'm going to be honest, I struggle with how to answer this question, because when I first started off, not even when I first started off, let's just call it the middle phase. When social innovation entrepreneurship was kind of becoming big, and I was like, we need to promote this. I was definitely where you were at in that mindset. Now I'm like, you know what? Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they never cared about profit. They cared about solving a problem.
That is beautiful.
Now, on some level, the problem that like a Steve Jobs is trying to fix, you could say he's not trying to solve a social problem. You could say the same thing about Bill Gates. But I would really like to see a survey. I would like to see a study done, like Jack Ma and these guys. When they unleashed that economy, how many people they lifted out of poverty? Now, they didn't mean to. Right? And I'm not going to say they meant it for profit. I'm not going to say they thought about their investors in that direct sense. I don't know, because I'm not in their heads and I'm not in their boardroom. But I also think that, if you're in Spain, if you're in Iran, if you are anywhere in the world right now where your unemployment rate is more than 20%, if you just create jobs, how can you say you're not a social entrepreneur? How can someone say that you're not a social entrepreneur? I pay taxes, I pay for my schools, for this, that, and the other. And I'm employing 3,000 people that were otherwise unemployed. Now, you mentioned having volunteers come in and work for you. Even though I run a large volunteer organization, I've never let volunteers come work for me. Not because I don't believe in that. I think it's totally fine. If a student wants to come and work for you for free, if they're not being paid, there should be another value to them. It's their CV. I have a great intern who's returning to me full-time this year. She wasn't paid very highly then. She's not going to be paid very highly now. But what I'm going to teach her, what I'm going to force her to learn, will put her into a very unique position in her space that she should be able to then capitalize on. And it's a short-term agreement. It's upfront, and I've told her I will make sure that you are in everyone's inbox so that you can get that job. Because I have a brand that I know some people are attracted to, and when they hear mine or they see an email from me, so if I can help her find a job that takes her from, she graduated from a good school in the States, she would have made $40,000. If I can put her into the $60,000 bracket because she did 6 months of work for me, then there's a value proposition to her that paying her didn't make sense for. Because I could just pay her and be like, I'm not going to help you. and then she had to go find her $42,000 job. But I think at the end of the day, like, if you're creating value for society, if you're in a place like Detroit creating jobs, if you are in a place like Shanghai and bringing organic food, if you are in, like Bangladesh and you're bringing clean water, like, it doesn't matter how much money you make off of that, as long as you are what you're selling to society is benefit that they could not get anywhere else, and where they're willing participants, and where there's real value, like your primary concern is solving their human problems. Yeah. I think that's where you start. And if you make money, if you IPO, if you go broke, if you go nonprofit, if you require a government subsidy, all that's secondary. That's all secondary for me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's intent, right?
But there is something which I have to mention for all entrepreneurs. For example, it's a scenario. I start a sort of business, which is, let's say, okay, as a social entrepreneur, it doesn't have that much profit, yeah? It's not bringing a sort of big money for investors, yeah? Imagine I don't have anything, but I got a great idea, great experience, I know how to operate things and so on. Then I start. So everybody has costs, yes? We have to cover our costs and so on, yeah? How? Because what I'm saying, the perspective, the culture, and the point of view of people are important in that country or in any society. If they don't believe in that, oh, okay, this business, whatever it is, as long as it doesn't bring any profit, you're not going to get it. Yeah. Because you need to have a sort of financial support, and then the financial.
But that's true whether you're an entrepreneur or social entrepreneur. Yeah. Like the laws of gravity.
Social entrepreneurs. That's the thing that I'm gonna just go on and focus on that how we can solve this part.
Okay, so I know exactly what you're saying, and what I would say in defense of this is, if you are actually solving a real problem, you have no problem. If you're trying to say, buy my X because I'm a social entrepreneur, then you've got a big problem. So using the brand of social entrepreneurship as a selling proposition is probably one of the fastest way to fail as a social entrepreneurship.
It's the wrong strategy, of course.
I'm selling you a phone. Do you want to buy my phone or not? I'm selling you clean water. I'm selling you something, right? Or I'm selling it to a government that I give it to you, right? Like, you have to have a client somewhere that finds value in your product or service, whether you're an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur. And I think this is where I try to split the hair on the definition a little bit, because I think there's so many people who sell the story of them being an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur first, before they talk about the impact of their organization, product, service, whatever it may be. And I think that if you're out selling, I'm a social entrepreneur, then you're setting yourself up for failure, or at least for a really challenging time. You might win a competition, and that might give you a little bit of money. But at the end of the day, you've got to be bringing real value to society. And if you do that, and you have a product or service, people will pay you for that. Now, the profit that you mentioned, my charity is very profitable. We take no money out. I basically just rotate it in. So we have a very simple model. We charge multinational corporations to manage their corporate volunteering programs. We charge them a fair fee. Especially now, we are a known commodity, so everyone knows what they get from us and how much they should pay. Early on, we probably upsold a little bit. Sometimes we downsold a little bit, whatever it may be. We take all that profit, which can range depending on the project, and then I deploy it against building student and individual programs. So I've actually done zero fundraising publicly as a charity in 12 to 13 years of operation, because we found a business model. We're actually one of the original social entrepreneurs, but I'm still not comfortable with selling ourselves as social benefit first, as a brand. We have to actually show and measure. And we show and measure all the time, every project.
You believe that people have to call you before you call that you're a social enterprise. This is one way. In another way, and you have to solve the problem which people they see. Yeah, I mean, from entrepreneurial perspective, yeah, the fundraising is important for them because it keeps their business to be alive and go on and go on.
But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Like, you should have a product or service that just sells. And that's why you shouldn't need fundraising. Actually, this is my conversation outside, was that I've never done marketing for either of my organizations. I just talk about what we do. And then people word of mouth come to me. It's always better if someone calls you and says, Rich, I need this. And they're really clear about what they need. And actually that need matches to what you can help them on. It's the worst thing is if you are going through a phone book of 400 people a day and trying to convince people of your value proposition. When it fix their problem, oh man, you're making it. Like, it's working then. It's like being a pizza parlor. I want this and I want it delivered in 30 minutes. It's different than, hey, I want you to buy this. You should buy this. You should buy this. Why? And all you can say is, well, I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm a good person. It's not sustainable. It might work for a year. It might work with your friends, but it won't last for 12 years.
Yeah, as we have a community, it's called Crazy Entrepreneurs. So, and it goes for being unreasonable. So being unreasonable and being crazy, does it matter in social entrepreneurship? Because you have to forget some benefits, because you have to sacrifice sometimes your time. Some other opportunities that you might have, but you're still...
Yeah, but again, like, tell me, like, people thought that Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos were crazy. They still think Elon Musk is crazy, right? Like, I definitely think as an entrepreneur, you have a bit of... You see the world differently. And some people call you crazy for that. And then you have to have the confidence to back that up, right? And you have to have the team. You have to have real clarity around your craziness. That, in a way, is like, no, the world is in the wrong place. I'm going to be here, and when it comes to here, magic, right? And I don't really care, like, social media innovators.
No.
Okay.
Actually, we have to mention this because sometimes I just talked to some people. When we are talking about social entrepreneurship, they think that
social media,
social media or anything it is related to social.
So I think that social media and technology are a huge part. Like, if I spend more of my time studying anything right now, it's how will we leverage technology and social media to solve problems, to create awareness, to engage people. And I spend a lot of my time doing stuff like this on social media so that people can see that they can learn from me, they can see my vision, they can be inspired, they can act on their own. Or if I'm like more promotional about this is my product and this is my platform, to get them to be like, oh yeah, really clear, like, I want to help, I want to work together. But social innovation and social innovators and social entrepreneurs, for me, there's really little difference. Like, if you're a social entrepreneur, you're an innovator, right? Or you should be. Sometimes you're not innovating in the same sense like I'm recreating the wheel, but the scale that you're bringing, the context that you're bringing, the effort that you're bringing, that makes you innovative, right? Especially if they're calling you crazy, right? You're innovative if you're crazy, right? Like, so get on with it. Just build the business.
Exactly.
Create the model, right? Make it sustainable as an organization. Make sure you have good teams. Make sure you have good product. Make sure you, like, invest time into a business, just like you would if you owned a burger shop, right? Like, best quality input, best quality output. That's it.
Beautiful, perfect. We really appreciate for your presence here. At the last point, what would be your advice for all entrepreneurs in China, as you have been here for a long time?
That's a really tough one, because, like, am I talking to the people who feel shitty right now? Like, I don't know if I should keep going. Like, look, China's an amazing place to be. Don't whine about how hard it is. You knew that before you got on the damn airplane. Just stay committed, right? And if you think that you're crazy, and if you've been whacking away for 10 years, like, there's always that, like, the guy that's like, he's in the diamond mine, and he's like one stroke away from hitting the diamonds. Then there's the guy that hits it right above him, who's just rich as hell, right? Like, it's really hard to tell whether or not you're crazy or if you're on the right path sometimes. And I think that's why you have to have real clarity around what's the problem you see, who's impacted, what's your product and service, and what's your value proposition to them. If you can't speak to 50 people who you believe are directly impacted by the problem that you feel exists and sell them on your idea, you're crazy. But if you can get 50 of them to go, hey, that sounds like a really good idea, you're getting closer. If you can get 30 of them to say, I'd pay $100, and you're like, well, that's $100 cheaper than I wanted, you're not crazy. Your business value proposition isn't there.
Yeah.
Stop being romantic about your idea. Stop being romantic about how smart you are. Just be committed to the overall idea and learn along the way. I'm not going to say fail and fail fast. Like, that's all common sense, but you're going to fail. The question is whether or not you blame yourself or you blame someone else. They're not buying my product because they're stupid. No. Like, the market's the market.
Yeah.
No matter what. It doesn't matter if there's a poor kid who's uneducated or someone who went to Harvard. If you're trying to sell something to either one of them, you have to understand who they are, what the value proposition is, and understand them, like, be really empathetic to them. Like, who are you? Why do you want this? How much would you pay? And then build your business model around that.
Really appreciate it, Richard. Thank you so much. Hope to see you in this session again and again and again. We love social entrepreneurs. Seriously.
I'm just an entrepreneur, man.
Yeah.
If you want to call me that, that's fine. That's great.
Awesome.
No problem. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Same. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
He's so excited. Look at he's like, it's actually working. Oh my God, electricity.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be like,
yo, GBC, y'all.
GBC,
awesome.
Real, y'all. Entrepreneur.
Who did this?
Make a wish, and the dream comes